I am not happy about doing this.
If it wasn't, well, you already saw what week it is, I wouldn't be talking about Contra 4, let alone the company that published it. I've made my feelings toward Konami quite clear in the past, and those feelings have only gotten stronger as they continue to dig their own grave. However, going by the lack of listing on various electronic retailers, coupled with the lack of an appearance on Konami's own US website,
Then again, trying to navigate Konami's website in order to double check this is another story entirely because, as of this recording, Konami's website doesn't seem to be working. One job. One job. One job.
new copies of Contra 4 don't seem to be sold anymore, unlike, say, Square Enix's offering on the DS that are sold on its site. So at least covering it means that Konami won't be earning a single cent from anyone who decides to pick up this game as a result of this review.
If that seems like an overly petty reason to justify one's actions, oh honey, you don't know Konami at all.
It is no secret that Konami has burned away what little goodwill they could ever claim to have garnered over the years. Beyond its incompetence in managing its various properties, its resistance to criticism of any sort with as many problems as it exhibits, and horrible treatment of their employees, which admittedly is just an allegation, the company has only continued to sink into the quicksand by being the very definition of a dumpster fire since the last time Konami's festering carcass has been dissected on this channel. Metal Gear creator, and last recent anyone would still defend the company in 2015, Hideo Kojima, was fired from the company- went on vacation, if Konami is to be believed. Which they aren't, because they aren't trustworthy. Ah yes, a vacation that ended with Kojima no longer working at Konami, and formed his own studio to make whatever game he so desires. Albeit as when he was limited in terms of promotion, because Konami legally prevented him from attending Jeff Keighley's The Game Awards.
As you noticed, Hideo Kojima is not here with us tonight, and I want to tell you a little bit about that. Mr. Kojima had every intention of being with us tonight, but unfortunately he was informed by a lawyer representing Konami just recently that he would not be allowed to travel to tonight's awards ceremony to accept any awards. It's inconceivable to me that an artist like Hideo would not be allowed to come here and celebrate with his peers and his fellow teammates.
I mean, the Game Awards are a non-watchable train wreck of a commercial that tried to sell the latest AAA video games under the guise of an award show, but it should have been up to Kojima if he wanted to die a little inside and attend it. Oh, and because I know someone's going to bring this up, no, Jeff Keighley calling them out on this does not somehow make the Game Awards any good. It's shooting fish in a barrel, which, let's be frank, is not that hard to do. I'm doing it right now. Not the barrel part, just Konami sucks.
While Kojima did eventually get to announce his newest game after returning from his vacation, the most notable productive non-pachinko results Konami seems to be able to muster is hopping on the zombie horror train with an awful-looking Metal Gear Zombie video game and re-releasing the game they split into two parts to monetize it to give the fans a taste of what's in store for Metal Gear in the next generation of consoles.
Incidentally, I called it. I called it years ago.
And splitting up Metal Gear Solid 5 into 2 games.
By the by, I'm willing to bet that Konami's gonna release Metal Gear Solid 5, the complete story, in less than a year. Any takers? Yes, worship me, mere mortals, for I'm a gaming prediction god.
Konami has no respect for its audience, its developers, and most certainly not the medium which they've been a part of for decades. It's a callous child in the form of a corporation with such a cruel treatment for its own toys, whose only means of getting a sense of satisfaction for playing with them is to toss them at a wall until they're broken into too many pieces for anyone to fix. And perhaps no better series summarizes how truly unsalvageable the ones they've squandered than with a game that elevates the series' best qualities, made by a studio that exemplifies actual affection for Konami's creations, than Contra. At this point, there's not much to be said about the classic arcade title, or its formerly popular NES port, and the dozen or so other ports that exist out there that hasn't been said before. How the NES version helped popularize couch hop on consoles, how it laid the groundwork for the third-person shooter with its various corridor levels, and how it launched a terrific, even incredibly challenging, series that saw a grand amount of success from the mid-80s to the early 90s. Unfortunately, after Contra Hard Corps, things took a turn for the worst. The absolute worst. In the mid to late 90s, nearly every major franchise was abandoning the second dimension and adopting the third, regardless of whether or not the developers had any reason for doing so beyond chasing the trend of the time. The jump to 3D was not kind to many series that thrived in the prior generation of gaming, Contra included. What was once an incredibly challenging, fast-paced run and gunner that blended in elements of 80s action and sci-fi movie aesthetics was thrashed into a sluggish bore made barely recognizable as a Contra game with Legacy of War. Legacy of War is often considered to be one of the worst jumps to 3D for any video game series, shamefully sitting next to Bubsy's, Castlevania's, and Prince of Persia's. No, not the one made by Ubisoft, the original Prince of Persia 3D. Yes, they really called it Prince of Persia 3D because somebody thought it was a good idea in marketing.
Amusingly enough, copies of Legacy of War would originally come with 3D glasses, which feels so appropriate.
The years following Legacy of War were less than kind to Konami's once mighty franchise. While some might argue the quality of Neo Contra, the series overall was seeing far more misses than hits, hurting both critically and commercially. So it was time to go back to basics.
Hi Internet, my name is Tom Hewlett. I'm a game director.
Enter Tom Hewlett, an employee at Konami at the time, one who would pitch several revivals for long-dormant franchises over the next few years like Rocket Knight, and getting those that went off the rails back on tracks like Silent Hill with Shattered Memories. Hewlett contacted Wayforward about a project due to the long history of making entertaining 2D titles and being mutually acquainted with Matt Bozon, even helping the team pitch the proposed project to Konami. A celebration of the series, and a return to form that would be known as Contra Dual Spirits, better known as Contra 4 on the DS. When it was first announced, there was a bit of controversy surrounding the title since it wasn't developed in-house like previous Contra games had.
Ignoring for a moment the quality, or in some cases the lack thereof, of the Contra titles that were developed in-house prior to handing the reins over to Wayforward,
when you consider how Konami's Silent Hill series fared when it switched from Eastern developers to Western ones, it wasn't an entirely unfair precaution to hold. After all, this wasn't some subtitled side game. Konami was making this the official sequel to Contra 3, in addition to commemorating the series', at the time, 20th anniversary. And while many people working on the project at Wayforward were themselves fans of Contra, being a fan of something doesn't necessarily translate to being able to replicate the enjoyment a fan would get from playing those games. So Wayforward didn't exactly have their work cut out for them.
this level of importance placed on a single entry is a rather interesting contrast when you compare it to 2016, where, among other franchises, Castlevania is celebrating its 30th anniversary with absolutely no recognition from Konami in regards to this milestone.
Prior to the game's release, most of the doubt was quelled due to some incredibly positive press.
Lance and Bill have been through some tough times in the past decade or so. Our favorite blue and red spandex wearing soldiers haven't had a real solid Contra game since Contra 3 on the Super Nintendo, and Konami knows that.
So they're taking all the crap they put out between then and now and saying, will you guys just kind of forget about that? And finally releasing a worthy sequel to the Contra series the way it should be done. And the best part, you'll be able to play whenever you want.
After playing it at E3 this year, we were hooked.
That was followed by a slew of reviews praising the often punishing but satisfying run and gun gameplay. Even the director of Contra 3 and Hardcore, Nobuyo Nakasato, gave the game their approval. So, did they succeed in successfully reviving the franchise in time for its big 2-0? Let's find out on the final day of the week of Wayforward with Contra 4. The story takes place after the events of Contra 3 with the arrival of a new alien threat called the Blaga. Okay, do any of you actually care? It's Contra. Do you really need an explanation for why things need to be shot at? Heck, do you even know the names of the characters in the game? The story only serves as a justification for going through the various locales, which fits with the minimalist design that Wayforward took when designing the game. Contra 4 is all about keeping the mechanics simple, harkening back to the old weapon grabbing, spreader shooting goodness during the 8 and 16-bit golden age that the genre of the run and gunner thrived in. Just running from left to right and mowing down any enemy during your typical stage, with the occasional corridor to break the usual absurdity on display. Even additions like a grapple serve more as an extension to the fast-paced reflexes demanded by such a difficult game than they do in deepening the pool that the game waits around it. This time around, picking up 2 of the same weapons on one slot upgrades it to a more powerful version which, while certainly challenging to hold onto a weapon long enough for that to actually happen, can certainly help clear the screen during a stressful situation. However, carrying a powerful pack of guns isn't particularly pleasing unless there's some good terrain to let them loose on, and Contra 4 nails this down with spades, boasting some great level design. One particular standout is a section during the 4th level where the player clings to the side of a rocket that gets launched into the air thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of feet, only to be attacked by, this thing they never name it, having to jump from handle to handle after defeating it off the side while missiles fly from the top to the bottom before climbing onto the rocket engines as it blasts out billowing pillars of fire. It's this level of over-the-top machismo that would fit right at home with the same Schwarzenegger films that inspired the original, which makes this 4th outing such a thrill from beginning to end. Though on the subject of conclusions, anyone selecting easy mode won't get to see the last 2 levels or the ending. To say Contra 4 is not kind to beginners is an understatement. It displays open hostility to even the slightest of errors, making this a common sight for all but the most seasoned of shoot-'em-up players. But while the Contra series tends to be on the tough side, Contra 4 takes things to a whole new level, with the gap between the DS's dual screen making it all too easy to lose sight of a bullet or 3 that manages to make their mark. If you are not careful, you can easily blow through or continue in a matter of seconds with the game's hefty expectations. What makes this worse is that the Konami code this time around doesn't grant extra lives. All it does is upgrade the weapons the first time you use it, and then kill you when you use it a second time. While it's helpful in its own right, you're gonna want some extra men in order to prevent yourself from ripping the hair out of your skull. Growl. Snarl. Shakes cane angrily.
Now, there is a way to get a lot of extra lives in Contra 4, but the method of obtaining them is a little tricky.
Whenever you defeat a mid-boss or a boss, you'll usually gain enough points to earn an extra life. Now, if you die a few seconds before the boss does, your life counter will hit 99, where you would have normally gained a single extra life. However, pulling this off is incredibly difficult. I've only been able to pull it off twice out of several dozen attempts.
Even the glitches in this game are a challenge unto themselves. Is there nothing easy about this game? Short answer, no.
Even if you do manage to pull this Herculean task off, those 99 lives can only get you so far and shouldn't solely be relied upon in the absence of skill. The real meat of Contra 4 comes from replaying the same levels over and over again, improving and memorizing every enemy's location and patterns to minimize the amount of lives lost from easily avoidable mistakes, which certainly makes the game feel like it flows through the same vein as the original and is far more difficult sequels with how precise the player has to be when going through the often gruesomely difficult levels. Speaking of previous Contra titles, Contra 4 has laced its level design with a cornucopia of Contra iconography. From the Titanic Fortress in the first level, lovingly paying homage to the NES classic, to the final level Xenomorph-inspired hordes from the titular Alien Wars, it's chock full of Easter eggs based on the series' highest highs. It's undeniably nostalgic, but Contra 4 isn't above tossing aside its rose-colored glasses in favor of shaking things up, whereas a lesser developer would have simply rested on evoking the legacy of its predecessor through iconic imagery. Wayforward went a step further, stinging in its own share of twists to these all-too-familiar foes and bosses, along with the levels they serve as a finale for, which helps give the game its own identity beyond being unbelievably punishing. On the subject of difficulty, after beating the game, a challenge mode is unlocked and, challenging it is. These make the main campaign feel like a walk in the park with how blood-boilingly brutal they can be, especially with how some of them seem like they were deliberately designed to be an absolute pain. There's one where you need to avoid hurting hostages while traversing through part of level 2, yet the weapons the stage hands out are ones with splash damage or can pierce through multiple enemies, meaning you'll need to take the time not to kill the many hostages on your way through in addition to not taking a single hit. And yes, every challenge requires that you do not take a single hit until you get to the end. If you make a single error, well, meet your new best friend. Nevertheless, the high level of difficulty these challenges present is immensely cathartic to overcome, more than satisfying the most hardcore of sadists by handing out bonuses like new characters, interview and images, as well as information about the many entries in the Contra series released up to that point. Best of all, the original Contra and Super C can be unlocked and played in full, with the additional option to play them in their original resolution.
It also means that Wayforward cares more about the Contra series and preserving video game history than the original company that made these games to begin with. As if that wasn't obvious enough already.
That same care and attention exemplified throughout the gameplay portion pops out once more with an all-around pleasant presentation. Contra 4 continues Wayforward's wonderful record with pixels, perfectly capturing the many iconic enemies of the series, with some incredibly grand bosses in scale to boot, while the soundtrack matches the high energy and adrenaline that comes with blasting through a level. It all comes together for a title whose difficulty never overshadows its carefully constructed and lavishly detailed levels.
Contra 4 is brutal, exhilarating, and absolutely ridiculous. In short, it's Contra, and a beautiful celebration of the series' then 20th anniversary. Easily, to this day, Wayforward's best game to not star Shantae.
It is a bit on the pricey side for a 2008 DS game. You can find it on eBay or Amazon for upwards of $30. However, when you consider the amount of time you'll be spending replaying the same levels over and over again, trying to perfect every run, coupled with completing the various challenges and unlockables, it is well worth every penny of the purchasing price. While the series would see a few more entries like the WiiWare exclusive Rebirth, Contra would never see another numerical release. In fact, the last main game in the series, Hardcore Uprising, was released in 2011 and featured radically different art style and design choices like a health bar, which may be due to the fact that Hardcore Uprising was intended to be its own series, which it never would. Konami did tease a new Contra title at E3 that same year, but said title was cancelled before a single screenshot or snippet of footage ever surfaced, nor would anything of the elusive Contra game on the 3DS. Instead, Konami decided to make the wise decision to publish Contra Evolution on mobile, as well as several pachinko machines using the Contra license. Would you expect anything less from them?
And so concludes the week of Wayforward. Thank you all for joining me, and, well, this is normally the part where I'd say until next time, but next time is gonna be a long time from now because I need a break from playing these games, writing, recording, editing. It's a lot. I don't even know what I'm gonna be reviewing next. Might be Pokemon related, might be Shantae Half Genie Hero, might be something else that I didn't even plan on reviewing. But it's gonna be a long time.